Welcome back. Israelis have used a number of countermeasures in the past against Palestinian rockets, including shelling and ground operations. This time, though, they say they've ruled out a ground incursion, but they are considering other options, which include occupying areas inside the Gaza Strip in order to prevent militants digging the holes and trenches that are used as launching pads, eliminating all those involved in rocket attacks. Some Israeli ministers also want to resume attempts to assassinate the political leadership of Hamas, improving technology to destroy the Qassam rockets, including a new version of an interceptor missile. Well, joining us again are our guests, Moti Kristal, a former member of the Israeli team negotiating with the Palestinians, Jihad Hamad, Professor of Political Sociology at the University of Al-Azhar in Gaza, and Ramiro Cibrian, European Commission Ambassador to Israel. If I could come to you first of all, Mr. Cibrian. We've seen there this idea that this time a ground offensive might be ruled out. Is this a sign of a weakness on the part of the Israeli government? I mean, in that it knows that it can't actually achieve anything with a ground operation?
I don't think so at all. I think the Israeli government is trying to respond in a way that is proportionate, in a way that corresponds to the challenges and to the risks and to the actual threats, and therefore it is quite likely that the Israeli authorities have considered that at the present time the responses that they are adopting are adequate and commensurate to the threats that are being experienced by Israel.
But at the moment we've got a situation which is simply a cycle of violence that goes tit for tat and everyone has the same discussion over and over again. What about something new, and what about the possibility of EU peacekeeping troops being brought in, for instance?
Well, let me speak in general about the deployment of international forces in conflict situations. There are two conditions which are necessary, which are in themselves not sufficient. The first condition is that the parties to the conflict must agree, must send an invitation to the international forces to deploy. And the second condition is that there has to be a permissive environment that will allow the effective deployment of these international forces. I don't think these conditions are at the present time met in the case of the situation in Gaza, and therefore any further discussion about the deployment of international forces has not much sense at the present time.
So you're saying effectively that because the parties can't agree, the international community can just stand back and say, that's it, we can't do anything?
You know, the international community can help the parties achieve stability, achieve peace, but it cannot replace the parties. If the parties...
Sorry, how can you help? Because at the moment...
insist...
At the moment it's looking pretty bad, isn't it? So how can you help?
Well, at the present time, the European Union is doing a lot of things in order to help the parties achieve peace and stability. To begin with, there is a political dialogue that the authorities of the European Union maintain with the Palestinian and with Israeli leaders. But on top of that, the European Union has not stopped one single moment its assistance to the Palestinian people through the temporary international mechanism. We are providing financial assistance. We are doing plenty of things in order to stabilize the situation under the present difficult conditions.
Okay.
But of course, in order to achieve decisive progress, it is necessary that the parties themselves decide to replace an agenda of confrontation by an agenda of cooperation.
Jihad Hamad, you were shaking your head there. What do you say to the international community is doing enough?
First of all, I would like to state here, I mean, there is a double standard by the international community, especially by UN. I mean, whereas we see in Darfur, I met with Mr. Eliasson, he is the representative of UN, just 2 weeks ago, and there is, an intervention that has been implemented by the UN in Darfur to prevent, violence between the Sudanese government and the people in Darfur over there. However, in the case of Palestinians, till this moment, we haven't seen any intervention, no peacekeeping, forces here, whereas we see daily by daily that Israel attack the Palestinians, assassinate Palestinians. There is a double standard. Let's face it, let's be frankly, and I think what we need a real solution by the international community, not to play with the two parties as a game, that to manage the conflict rather than resolving this conflict.
Okay. But also,
in this case. I think what we need, Palestinians also have to recognize.
Let me stop you there. Don't the Palestinians also have a responsibility to stop their infighting and produce somebody that everyone else can talk to?
Yes, I do. I agree with you. Palestinians, they gave a lot of things. I mean, they accepted the resolution of 1967. They accepted.
But we're talking about now, not 1967. We're talking about now, and you've had fighting over the last few days, which has been,
well,
even to Palestinians, has been unacceptable.
Violence brings more violence. Yeah, Lauren, I agree with you. I mean, violence brings more violence. Both sides, they have to accept to deal with this by dialogue, sit on the table. If they did not find somebody, you know, I mean, they did not find a direct, you know, negotiation, they have to find another party. And we expect from the international community, especially UN, to intervene in this case, to resolve this problem dialogically, peacefully, rather than going for further military, you know, actions by Israel. Okay, violence brings more violence, and I think...
Let me bring back Moti Crystal. We heard that violence brings violence. Is the problem at the moment that the government in Israel is actually quite weak, and so it doesn't actually have many avenues to go down?
Well, I think despite the Israeli internal political challenges, the Israeli government still represent, I would say, a solid address or partner for any dialogue that my Palestinian colleague is calling. I think that the first and foremost important necessary condition is the emergence of a reliable, responsible and capable Palestinian leadership that the international community and Israel will be able to deal with. Leadership which will be, first of all, free of external manipulations from hostile organizations, hostile countries. Today, what happened is that the streets of Gaza, unfortunately for the Palestinian people, unfortunately for Israel, became a playfield for external forces. And I do encourage my Palestinian colleague to take responsibility and bring together a leadership which will be committed to dialogue rather than to terror. This is a first step towards dialogue. Even if the Israeli government would like to converse, the question is with whom?
Okay, Ramiro Thibrian, Ambassador, if I could bring you back in. What's your radical solution here? I mean, it's a very difficult situation that's been going on for years. Is there something that you can bring at the moment that could help?
Well, let me add 2 points. The first one is that when there has been no firing of Qassam rockets during the recent months, there has been no Israeli response. And I think this is something important to keep in mind, in particular for the Palestinian people in Gaza. The second one is that in addition to the temporary international mechanism, the European Union is already carrying out a peace activity mission in Gaza. In fact, at the Rafah crossing point, there is a European Union border assistance mission, but of course this border assistance mission, this presence of European forces on the ground responded to the two conditions that I mentioned before, namely that there was a request that both parties, and afterwards that there was a permissive environment that allowed the mission to deploy. The European Union, of course, hasn't got any miraculous solution. The European Union is at the disposal of the parties to help them make progress in case that they decide really to move in the direction of peace and cooperation.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Ramiro Thibrian. And thank you to all our guests. Ramiro Thibrian, Ambassador of the European Commission to Israel, and Jihad Hamad, Professor of the Political Sociology at the University of Al-Azhar in Gaza, and to Moti Crystal, former member of the Israeli team negotiating with the Palestinians. Thank you very much indeed for all of you. And thank you for watching this edition of Inside Story. We do, of course, welcome your comments and suggestions. Do please email them to us, insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.